You're listening to The Present Professional.
Get quiet to live loud.
Aligned action or a distraction. Those are the two options.
It's the best thing you can do for humanity.
A podcast for leaders navigating the human experience. Brought to you by Humessence. And I'm your host, John Marshall. All right. Welcome to another episode of The Present Professional. Today, we have a special guest with us, Jevon Wooden. Good time friend and long time overdue to have you on the show, so I'm so happy you're here. But for those of you that don't know Jevon yet, he's the CEO and founder of Bright Mind Consulting Group. He's a dynamic speaker, certified coach, and business consultant with expertise in empathetic leadership, emotional intelligence, and building workplace culture. A Bronze Star recipient and Army veteran, his insights and strategies have also been featured in Entrepreneur, Forbes, Inc. magazine, and Fast Company. So it's a pleasure to bring him on to the podcast today, and I'm excited for you all to experience just entering into one of our conversations here.
Hey, man, I'm so excited. Like you said, it is long overdue, John, so glad to be here, brother.
Agreed. So today we were talking about topics to bring up, and Jevon actually suggested the topic, and it rang true for me immediately. So we want to talk a little bit about the importance of doubling down on human intelligence in the age we're entering into of artificial intelligence. When he brought that up, I was immediately like, yep, that's what we're going to talk about. So if listeners, if you've been experiencing your introduction to utilizing this new technology, thinking about different ways that it's infiltrating your life and your workplace, you've come to the right conversation. So thank you again, Jevon, for suggesting that topic. And I just want to ask you right off the top, what was behind your immediate suggestion of that?
Yeah, man. Well, there's a few things. So the first part to that is I have a background in technology. I have a master's in cybersecurity, all these things. My world was tech before I started Bright Mind Consulting Group and went at this full time. And then the second component is, when you go to a conference, what's the topic you always see? AI. Right? No matter what the organization is about, no matter what you're going for, you get AI. Even people who are not experts on AI. Why? Because that is the thing that is pressing on everyone's mind, on everyone's agenda. The uncertainty and then the opportunity are really intersecting right now. So I'm like, hey, why not just talk about what is on the forefront of everyone's mind right now?
Intersection of opportunity and so many other things. Fear,
Absolutely.
challenge, complexity, right? What to use it for. It's like when I think of those crossroads, it's like almost a roundabout.
That's exactly what it's like. And if you're in Houston, a lot of people don't know how to drive in a roundabout, right?
Exactly.
And that's what we are in this AI, HI type of, roundabout that we're on right now. And, I see a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders just throwing out the term AI arbitrarily. They don't even really understand what they're saying because like you said, John, there's a lot of different use cases for AI. But if we are not careful, we make the assumption that AI can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
AI they say is self-learning and is able to understand and do all these other things, but it's really pattern recognition at the end of the day. And if you don't give it that pattern, it will not understand what's happening. One of those patterns is context. That's why I think human intelligence is, I know, human intelligence is even more important right now because we're in a dangerous time where we're trying to feed AI everything, and we're trying to make it so it's doing things that only humans can do at this time that we're talking here. which is that contextual. The AI doesn't know when I raise my hand, if I'm waving my hand to say hello, if I'm raising it because I want to ask a question, if I'm raising it to say stop, it can't understand things like that right now. All right. If I'm frowning, it doesn't know if I'm frowning because maybe you said something, if I'm sad, it cannot detect those types of things. And that's why we're having issues. I'm seeing whole customer service teams get replaced by AI. Don't we all hate those stupid call trees? Right? Right? So that's an example that we're not quite there yet with AI, and we need to really slow down on the adoption in a lot of situations where high touch, high human intelligence, emotional intelligence is necessary for the end user experience, and not just the end user experience, but the greater good as an organization.
Right, but and I agree, that's the feeling, and, when you're operating in this right now hyper fast moving marketplace and your competitors are cutting their costs by 25% and adopting AI for their customer service teams or for different parts of their business that are just helping them become more efficient to compete. And it's almost like I find it challenging for people to take the slow down to speed up advice when the external environment is reacting that much quicker. So, what do you say to the leader that's saying, well, but my competitors are doing all of this, like, why should I slow down?
Yeah, and you said a word, react. Right? If we are reacting, then we're already in trouble. If you have not thought about the consequences, you have not done tabletop exercises, you have not gone through what that could lead to and experienced that and went through that process and that exercise, you're already taking a dangerous step. And we see that all the time where people think first mover advantage. It means that if wasn't that first mover, I'm behind. First mover advantage is not always an advantage. First mover means that you just took the leap, but now everyone else can learn and watch and see what happens with you. So there have been instances where that first mover tried to replace their whole call center with AI, and they had to call people back because they're like, okay, this thing is not saying what we needed to say. They're not answering the right questions. They're denigrating people because we didn't think about that population. They can't understand certain accents. All these different situations that are not really taken into account. So when you move that quickly, you got to ask yourself, am I willing to deal with all that may come with me moving that quickly? Or can I afford to sit back, watch, and do some market research and analysis, really understand the technology before I implement the whole thing? You can implement small subsets of technology, right? You don't have to go all or nothing. You can go at and say, all right, we're going to try this place, get really good at this, and then we'll go ahead and implement this piece. And while you're doing that, John, please tell your people why and how it impacts them. Be transparent in that way. That's where we're seeing a lot of the issues.
I agree with that, the transparency side of things. And, it's right now we're talking about AI and replacing certain teams or replacing whole functions of teams. But really, I think the first best use case is helping your teams spend more time doing the highest value activities, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you have a
Augmentation.
sales team that spends 20% of their time in front of the customer, right? 80% of their time admin, Salesforce or CRM entries, right? Meetings, market reviews, all kinds of things that are taking them away from the customer. It's like, how can you implement AI in creative ways that are, you know, automatically taking their call reports and updating CRMs and updating the reports that they would have to do. That's why I think your advice to slow down is the only way you can really see a process like that and say, what are the pieces here where we could get back 80% of our person's time? Even imagine even getting 30% of your sales reps time in front of the customer is huge.
It
Be a
is.
huge
That is
return on
huge.
investment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's where I feel AI is right now is the augmentation. We say artificial intelligence, I think it's augmented intelligence. And if you put AI, the augmented intelligence and the human intelligence together, like that's the most powerful combination you can have. Because, if you think that sales team example, the salesperson, they know a client deeper than any AI can know just from doing a digital download, right?
Hmm.
They understand the situations, they understand sales cycles, they have institutional knowledge, they have intuition that the AI just can't use. The use case that you said is the best one that I recommend right now is to make okay, we have this thing. You're doing all these admin tasks, these back end things, the mundane things that you don't need to be spending your brain power and expertise on. So how can we make it so AI can do those things? Fine. But even then, we have to be careful, John, because we know AI still has hallucinations. It still makes things up. It still confuses things in terminology and stuff like that. So there has to be some type of Q in a QA. There has to be some quality assurance there still. Someone that should be another task. Like, how can we ensure that what was downloaded and what was said is actually what was said, at least from the beginning of using that AI?
Mm. Hmm. You know, you bring that up in QA, but I've spent a lot of time in my career doing QA on human activities.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So, I think, yes, I do think that's still a necessary part of the process. But then, ultimately, we're checking and double checking people's work all the time,
Yeah,
until you build the trust to delegate the higher priority items to your people, right? It takes time to
absolutely.
build trust with a system like it does a person.
But you know what's interesting is people immediately trust AI.
Oh,
You notice that, right? There is
I
no
do.
checks. So if you go online, you see all these AI posts, people don't check it. They don't tweak it to make it sound like them. They just take it as is. They take it as gospel, right? So we just have to make sure that we don't say just because it's a machine, it's 100% accurate. So we have to make sure that we're just like we check the humans, we at least in the outset of the usage, we start doing some QA to ensure that we're getting the outputs that we assume we'll get. Because what do they say? When you assume, it don't always go the way you want it to go, right? They use another word, but I'm trying to keep it PG.
Right. So the leader or business owner that's listening to this right now and thinking, I do want to look at augmenting some of my team's tasks, processes, or things, you know, where should they start when it comes to kind of doing an audit of their current business or their current team's activities and things like that? What would you recommend as the starting place for a leader to really get a lay of the land of what can be augmented for the biggest bang for their buck?
Yeah, I mean, and it depends on the leader's goals. If your goal is to replace the people, then that takes a few of the options out, right? Because if you want to replace, you can't ask them, what their day in the life looks like and for them to document what they feel like AI can take. You can't ask them to go ahead and program the AI to ensure. But if you are not replacing them and you're augmenting them, that's where I would start is to say, hey, looking at your day in the life, where do you feel like you can best utilize your skills and just offload some of this stuff to AI, all right? Whether it's drafting content, whatever it is. And they can kind of tell you, like, hey, I love to keep this. I want to keep this. This is in between. I don't know if there's technology out there for that yet. Here's where we know we can start. Like, let's start with this section, take this and put it in AI. That's the best place to me because it also allows people to know that they're not in danger, and then that they can upskill to kind of help program that, and then that they're also valued. So that's where I would start if I can do that. If I cannot, ask my people because I'm looking to replace them with artificial intelligence instead of augment them, then you're going to have to understand that role and that task. And you're probably going to have to ask the manager, what does that role look like? Like, what do they do on a daily basis? Do they track? Do they submit a report to kind of track? And if they don't, can we ask them to start submitting a report over time so we can kind of understand what's going on in that role and what they do on a daily basis, and then see and just pick ourselves like what we think is needed from that role, and can it be assigned to AI or not?
Interesting. So I had a client that worked for a fairly large global organization, and he was essentially tasked at a 1,200 person, like, essentially an AI integration that was worth about 1,200 people in headcount. And so you kind of, like you said, right, that there's a reduction on the way. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you see what's all unfolding within your organization, right? Now, this was a much larger scale, right, than a lot of the times and a lot of the clients that I'm working with. But it was an interesting approach where he was actually pretty transparent, right? And more led the way of saying, this change is coming,
Mm-hmm.
right? The technology is coming. So when it comes down to the savings or the additional revenue that we believe that this is bringing in, you can utilize the technology to amplify your productivity and the success and criticalness of your role in the same amount that it would be to reduce headcount. So he almost made it a challenge for the group to, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with the approach,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought it was just an interesting approach to put people's feet to the fire to say, like, hey, you have a choice. Learn the technology and help yourself become more efficient and deliver more value, right? Or, there could be consequences coming down the line, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the way I see that approach is, we talked about the intersection between uncertainty and opportunity. For me, that generates too much uncertainty. And that's
Agree.
the issue, because I don't know if even if I do program this thing and I upscale and rescale and do all this other stuff, I don't know if I'm going to be cut.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what your standard is for staying, or if there is a standard. How do I know we're not just going to all go once we get you where you're trying to go? So that trust level is not there with that approach, and
I
that's why I
agree.
say, like, you really have two dynamics. You always should be transparent about what's going on, and if you know that you're going to get rid of them anyway, just save them the heartache of getting cut 6 months down the road. If you already know that, like, start helping them get to that other place, because I found that people feel they will do what is necessary, and you'll have that downtick. Of course, some people just be
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm out already. But then you have people who truly believe what you're doing and say, okay, even though I know that I'm gonna be cut, I want to be a part of this. And it makes their resume look good, and you're helping them with career services. You may give them a severance, all those different things. You just need to be able to support them in that way. But I just don't want to generate a ton of uncertainty that is unnecessary by saying, "Hey, I'm gonna put my feet to the fire." That's fear-based leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and I just feel like that is not conducive to long-term success.
I agree. I thought it was an interesting approach that
Yeah,
he kind of already had underway.
right. He was like, "I'm gonna be Elon on this one."
Right. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, maybe there are some conversations that that need to be had here. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
But now, starting with so that's, I feel like, the leader, where they're starting to have some of these conversations, get a lay of the land. And, what about, and I feel like as a small business owner myself and ourselves, like, we're actively always finding places that we can leverage this technology,
Hmm.
right? because, a head count can be an extremely costly part of our business, right?
Absolutely.
So we're always looking for places, but just kind of I'm curious about your advice to the small business owner as well. Someone that's starting a business right now, or maybe even in the first 5 years of their business, right? What kind of audit should they be doing on their business? And maybe what's one or two tools that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, this is I look at it as a force multiplier. We used that word augmentation earlier, John, and that's how I recommend any small business, large business, any of that. I recommend them to look like, okay, what do I need? Where do I feel like I'm lacking as an individual, as a business leader, whatever? I need someone. There's a book, Traction, right? Talks about having and someone else
Yeah.
that's opposite of you and stuff like that. So if you can use an agentic agents or something like that, and you create them and say, hey, I'm this way. I want you to think this way, and I want you to scrutinize some of my thought processes. So I have someone who can kind of be that angel on my shoulder, right? That voice of reason, because maybe I'm impulsive or whatever it is. That's how I want to program mine, right? That's how I use mine. And then I also use it as a small business owner to say, okay, I need market research. I need marketing. I need to make sure my message is landing. So I want you to see things from whoever my target audience's perspective. And
Hmm.
that's how I love to use this thing, John. And then I'll say, hey, I'm writing this post, I'm writing this piece, I'm writing this training, tear it apart. Where are some of the gaps and the holes that aren't
Yes.
flowing well? Because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is it's going to agree with you on everything. Say you use ChatGPT or Gemini, it's going to agree with you. Like, oh yeah, that is great. So you got to challenge it to challenge you. And that's how I like to use that. And then there's stuff like, of course, perplexity and all that stuff, like search engines. I love that for research
Hmm.
and just getting deeper, that deep analysis. I love there's a bunch of like Gamma and all this other stuff for
Hmm.
presentations. If you find that you're not good at PowerPoint, so some of those beautiful that AI, there's a bunch of these tools that really can help to augment once again and make you a lot more efficient on things that you need to do, pitch decks, presentations, your wording, your messaging, your content, your sales funnels. You mentioned like making sure everything is connected. I still love Zapier because I can connect all my tools and make it seamless. No one knows what's going on, and like stuff like that. Just making sure that you are optimizing your process flows and your user experience. That's how I like to use it. And it's optimizing my research where I'm not having to spend hours. I can spend like literally minutes, understand what my competitors are doing or what the hottest topics are. That's how I would use it. And that's how I recommend using it for everyone. Not to create for you, but to help you brainstorm and to help you fill those blind spots you may have.
I couldn't agree more. It's definitely a thought partner for me as
Yes.
well, right?
Yes.
Just through ideation, design ideation, a whole bunch of different things that come up. Web page design ideation, different topics to discuss. I mean, it's always there to bounce ideas off of, and I agree with the scrutiny as well. I do the same
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, you have to because it's too
What am
nice,
I
man. It's
missing
like,
here?
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, Jevon. Oh no, it wasn't. Like, what are you talking about? So I wanted to scrutinize and tear my stuff apart so I can be better.
Right, right. I think you summed it up. You summed it up really well, right? Helping it, right? Your your customer experience, your process flows, and getting into the research. I feel like I feel like the human intelligence part of it, we almost have a research trauma built into
Mm,
us in some way. Like do the research reminds us of just, cold days in the library.
Yeah, yeah, it's too much like work, right? It's like I don't unless you enjoy that part, I mean, cool, but I love being able to say, "Hey, find me some things," and then you can confirm, right? Trust but verify. You confirm that these are legit
Exactly.
because you don't want to be putting things out there that's like, where did that come from? Then you don't really have a source. But it's just like things you would never find. Like for instance, I'm doing my doctorate right now,
Mhm.
and like some of the readings that I'm inputting into my dissertation. I
Mhm.
probably would have never found them because they're not cited as heavily as some of the other works out there on the topic. So that's the beauty of what we have at our fingertips and at our disposal right now. No matter what AI tools you want, right?
I agree. I agree, man. I just finished up my master's in August, and it
Congratulations
was
once
thank
again.
you. Thank you. And I remember sitting there and, putting together all of the research, right? And AI was such a great tool in being able to, you're right, discover some of these things that you would never see. And I was thinking about, you know, 50 years ago, like how did you had to scour library, and like if it wasn't in your library,
Oh
it had to
man.
be mailed to you or something. Like
Yeah.
how did people do
Salute to them.
research?
Salute to them who had before imagine before a computer at all. Like man, you had to literally
it would
handwrite this stuff.
it would be like your dissertation would take you the whole time, years. Like how
Yeah, I don't
there just
I
wouldn't
don't
be
know.
enough things to research. But I mean, I guess maybe it was a smaller body of work itself, but even still, that's just so much time in reading. Like,
There's no
I
shortcuts
don't,
in that
I don't know.
way.
You're
And
right. You're
that's
right.
the beauty of now. It's like you think about it, you can synthesize all the materials that you're receiving into what you really need it for. It's like think about all that wasted time of these great minds before us who had to do all these things manually that we can now say, hey, I'm gonna just offload that part and use my brain processing power for creating and innovating and doing things a little bit differently. My one of my professors, she says, her name is Vanessa Pachter. She talks about the knowledge tree and how on that tree, instead of trying to create a whole new tree or create a branch, you try to do this leaf, and the AI just helps us find the leaf that we're looking to plant on that knowledge tree
Mm,
so much easier. Because what do we see these days? We're seeing, some people get their dissertations challenged. Oh, you plagiarized. Oh, you did this. Oh, you did that. Well, how would I know when I didn't have nothing to reference? I'm doing this thing manually right now. Right. So it's just like those types of things we may take for granted right now, but I feel like we also still have to leverage and tie into the fact that we still need to check. We still need to confirm. We still need to ensure that we're adding value because I feel like a lot of people are just posting stuff they would never post about you, and you know nothing about it, but you're posting about it, right? So
I
we
mean,
still need
even
to make
writing
sure it's
whole books,
authentic. Yeah,
you
writing
know,
AI books, it's like it's really
it's wild.
cheapening knowledge for me, and it's hurtful for someone who loves knowledge, who loves to seek understanding and knowledge. So we really have to be great stewards of the technology if we're talking about human intelligence and AI coming together. Like one of the things is making sure you're being ethical and you're being a great steward of these tools. Because if
Hmm.
you're not and you're claiming, you're doing these things and it's not you, people are going to notice. Like if I have a conversation with you and I'm like, oh, you had a great post about, agentic AI and how it's impacting your organization. Tell me more about that. And you're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what I made that post, right? And you start to run into that more and more, right? You're starting to see things like that. So, I mean, I've been to conferences and speakers are having their speeches created by, the technologies. And when
Mm,
you can tell, because when they get off track, they fall, right? They falter.
mm.
So it's like we have to really be cognizant of that and understand that whatever we're doing with these tools, we need to understand it at a foundational, fundamental level.
I agree. I agree. And just shifting, that was a great segue into a little bit more focus on human intelligence here. And I think we're in a great spot when it comes to when it comes to being good stewards of AI, because I think the best questions hold even so much more weight now. Now that we have so much technology and different models to answer them, like the quality of if asking the right questions is going to be more important than having the right information.
I
Right.
agree.
So I think
I
even as
wholeheartedly agree.
coaches, like you know, we're in a good place to be able to support that. But I think that that's part of human intelligence is being able to understand the problem and ask the right questions for it to be solved, because now you essentially have the ability to learn anything that you
Yes,
want, basically for free, right?
absolutely.
So it's about opening your mind to m- as many things as you can to be able to ask the right questions to solve the problems that are meaningful to you. So I think it's a good opportunity to give people purpose, you
I
know?
agree. I wholeheartedly agree, man. And that they use the term prompt engineering. It's like if you can understand prompts, then you can literally find anything just about like for free. Now, the thing that I see people running into is one, they don't know what questions to ask, and
Mhm.
then two, it's like they go down rabbit holes on information. It's like, do I even need to know this right now? Right,
I'm
and then
definitely a victim of that
yeah, yeah, we
sometimes.
all do it. It's the human thing because it's like I'm curious. I want to find out what is thinking about this. Oh, I just wrote this thing. What do you think? We're starting to leverage that and do it for things that we necessarily don't need to do it for. I'm hearing like I've been coaching some young men, or not even young, just men, some high achievers on emotionally intelligent communication in their relationships, and they have started to use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, pick their two, Claude, for their text. So instead of just texting the person, they will put it in. I want to say this thing. I want to ask her to dinner, for example, and they'll have ChatGPT write that. I'm like, that's not a good look for you, right? Because that person on the other end is reading that like, oh, this is definitely ChatGPT. And then when you get in front of it, you sound nothing like that. It's like
That's
we gotta
wild.
we gotta be authentic, man. Like if it's sounding too good, it's a such thing as sounding too good. All right. So we sound too good. We gotta make sure it's in our voice.
But I think now that, the training that we specifically deliver and the things that we speak about the most, like helping people become more emotionally intelligent, develop better relationships, understand people better. Now, like these are all the differentiating skills in the
Absolutely.
workplace now, right?
Yeah.
Information is
It's
becoming
a
a
commodity.
commodity.
It's a commodity. Absolutely. Look, we think the
Right?
same thing. But it's those, like you said, those who ask the best questions and those who look to understand on a deeper level. Connection. Connection is going to be the key. And as we're in this age of technological advances, connection is the thing that we're actually as the most disconnected we've ever been right now because we have so many different distractions. We're not used to these face-to-face interactions anymore, especially if you've come up during the COVID pandemic. A
Hmm.
lot of people are so disconnected and they really don't know how to get past that surface level conversation, communication. Like I know tons of folks who are like, man, you know what? I don't even know how to convey how I'm feeling anymore. I don't know how to listen to other people without getting distracted and checking my phone anymore. It's like all these little things, those are the people that are going to be, the change makers that Steve Jobs once talked about in his talk. The change makers are going to be the ones that could tap in even more to the human elements and human components than they ever have. Those people who are able to train and be disciplined to listen, disciplined to understand and know what questions to ask a person, disciplined enough to know how to convey their thoughts in a way that's intelligent and understandable and digestible. So that's where I feel like there's so much opportunity here for the human side of things, even in this age of AI.
Well, I couldn't agree more. The name of my business says the same thing.
Yes, exactly. So
Right.
if anyone understands, you understand.
I mean, but you hit something. You said that really, really well. Now I'm just thinking of, the listener that's sitting here right now that just heard that and says, I need to make this an increased focus for me, right? I need to start paying attention to these human elements, becoming more emotionally intelligent, right? Being able to set myself up to be able to ask the right questions, to present myself well, to deliver better presentations. I mean, any human element that can start setting them apart professionally and personally, kind of ridding them of this really epidemic of loneliness, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I would just kind of keep it simple and say, the first steps, someone listening to this that says, I do I need to make it a point to learn more about emotional intelligence and start like incorporating some of this training and methodology into my life. What's the first step that they should take?
yeah. I think just saying that and deciding is the first step. Deciding to do something about it, but then you have to get deeper and do some introspection. Like, what does that actually mean? What does that look like? Where do you feel like you're lacking and there's room for improvement and being more human, so to speak? Do you feel like you just don't listen well? Do you feel like you always listen to respond? Are you feeling like when you communicate, you don't make eye contact? So you really have to take that deep dive into where those gaps and rooms for improvement are for yourself, and then find out some exercises that you can do. So for me, for example, if I'm coaching someone and they're like, you know what, I don't feel comfortable presenting. And now we got to find out why. Like, what's the root cause of that? Like, why don't you feel comfortable? And is it in all cases? Is it some instances? Is it a certain person? So we really have to kind of get deeper into the aspects of being more human that we want to focus on, and then find the patterns. Just like AI is, human intelligence is all about pattern recognition as well. So we got to identify our self patterns, become self aware, and then make a plan on that. And of course, I'm going to plug that a coach can really, really help you shine that mirror on yourself, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, a coach is the best way to see yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're hiring a person to see things in you that you don't see in yourself, right?
That's it.
The
That's it.
same thing happens with my coach. I leave the session like, wait a second, I consider myself pretty self-aware. And even still, like there's always more things to learn and become aware of and then make different choices, right? And I would also offer that, you know, being with more people that you want to be like,
Yes.
who do
Yes.
you know that you say would have a higher emotional intelligence or does do a good job of getting up in front of the room and giving a presentation? Get to know them,
Yeah.
spend time with
Absolutely.
them. Set up even if it's not a mentor mentee relationship, just hang around people that have the skills that you want to learn more about. It's just
Yeah.
kind of a product of your environment kind of thing, right?
And another thing, like when I was coming up, I didn't really have anyone that I looked to, like that I knew. But you can have virtual mentors. You can literally, again, because everything's at your fingertips, find people who really inspire you to be better and look at the things that make you like gravitate towards them and see if you can adapt them to you, to your situations, and make them yours. I recommend that 10 out of 10 times to everyone.
Hmm.
It's really, I'm just going to call it out and say there's really no excuse to why you wouldn't become a better you, if you're willing to put in that work.
I agree. I agree. There's so much out there. Well, this has been, this has been a great discussion. I think we've, covered all the way from points of where AI is infiltrating different workplaces and teams, how people can utilize it, through to the most essential human elements that are going to set people apart in the workplace, well, really, and in their personal lives, right? Moving forward
Absolutely.
from here and support them to be able to leverage this technology better, right? So what's one closing word of wisdom that you would offer to listeners? And if not one word of wisdom, one resource that they should purchase, look at, read, review, something that was supportive for you.
For me, the word would be, again, tap into the beauty of being human. Like, don't get so caught up in the wave that AI is going to be the key and savior to it all, because none of this works without humanity, right? So that's what I want people to really, really understand, and the fact that you can't impact change, the change in the wave that's coming. You can be a part of that. Don't let it happen to you. Let it happen for you. So that's what I would leave with them.
Thank you. Thank you. And how can they connect with you, Jevon?
Yeah, you can go to jevonwooden.com. That's JEVONWOODEN.com. That way you can message me. You can connect with me on my socials, check out my books, and what I'm up to.
Right. Beautiful. Yes. And the books too. Tell them about the books.
Yeah, so I have two books. One is Own Your Kingdom, How to Control Your Mindset So You Can Control Your Destiny. That's very relevant right now because we're talking about
Right.
uncertainty and opportunity and everything. So got to be in the
Exactly.
right headspace. And then the second book is called From Functional to Phenomenal, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Transforming Your Leadership and Business. And it's really talking about leveraging human connection to grow your personal brand and lead.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. Links to those and Jevon's website will be in the show notes. Jevon, I just want to, deeply thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this time, this conversation, and also just, being a friend, mentor, collaborator, all the things that you've been to me over the years as well. Thank you for
Man,
that.
man, thank you. That means a lot to me, John. Glad I finally was able to get on the present professional. This means a lot to me. I mean, you are an outstanding, outstanding gentleman and father, brother. You're just outstanding, man. I'm glad and honored to be a part of your journey.
Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to The Present Professional. We will have more episodes coming along, and you'll be able to interact with Jevon, like I said, with the links in the show notes. I appreciate you being a part of the community. I will see you next time.